Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Lincoln Coaching Podcast. Today, I have with me Greg Aden, who is the business owner for Aden Leadership. He is an executive coach. He's a motivational speaker. He helps people develop their careers, develop their success. And he was actually one of the first people to give me an opportunity. He gave me my first speaking gig. So I thought it only makes sense to bring Greg on. I would have brought Greg on anyway, just because he is literally one of the most compassionate people that I've met. He's given me so much advice. So he was someone that I really wanted to have on the show. And I'm sure he's going to be teaching every one of us a little bit of insights on how to lead, because Greg focuses on leadership. Greg's been recognized as a leader of the Western IHD for 3 years, so we're definitely going to ask him about that. Greg, so happy to have you on the show.
Great to be here. Appreciate it. It's great seeing you.
You too. We haven't spoken to each other in a while, but when we first met, you were popping up on my LinkedIn because I essentially was searching for any insights I could get on being a better leader. And I came across yours, and I could see that you had like thousands of people signed up to what you were doing. And you were putting on a show of sorts. So give us an introduction as to what you've been doing with your business and what's made it work.
Sure. I guess what makes my business work is I was a leader before I was a leadership coach. I was following good managers and great leaders before I became a coach. So I say that just to give your audience an idea that I didn't just wake up one day and decide to get credentialed and start coaching people on how to be better leaders, Chris. I've had a whole life of following people and leading people. And then I also realized, and you mentioned in your intro, IHG, Intercontinental Hotels Group, which at the time was the largest hotel company in the world until Marriott bought Westin and Sheraton. But anyway, back in those days, I was really good at what I did, and that was helping people buy and sell hotel franchises. Not what I was going to be remembered for, but during that time, I was really good. Say I was a good salesperson. Say I was a good developer. But I was really I didn't even know it at the time, Chris. I was honing my communication skills, my listening skills, my ability to read people and help them buy something instead of selling them something. And that's a distinction I'll go to my grave saying that if you're in sales, you've got to be a good communicator and you have to be a great listener. Well, guess what? To be a great leader, you also have to be a great listener and have great communication skills. So it's interesting. I spent my entire career in sales and development only to help me understand that communication is the key to everything.
I think that's so true. And particularly what I learned from sales is taking on so much accountability. Like there's so much that rests on your shoulders to make the business continue. You're managing the relationships, you're understanding the product, you're trying to understand why it's valuable to them and why they might need it, because you don't want to waste your time trying to sell it to someone that's not going to get value out of it. So I love that. I didn't realize you had a sales background, but would you agree in the sense that you think sales does give you so much in terms of leadership and accountability to be able to develop yourself as a leader and as a coach?
Yeah. And the first thing I would say, even before accountability, Chris, would be integrity. I mean, I have met and I have run with a lot of different individuals, and integrity to me is everything in a man and woman, in a human being. Do what you say, honor your word. And then accountability for our actions. Chris, I will show up at 12:30 at this restaurant. Then I come waltzing in at 12:40. Oh, sorry, traffic this, my wife that, my kid this. And no, but did you even call and say you're going to be late? And that's one of those examples, and I'll use 1,000 times until I'm in my grave, because we take advantage of, I'm the person that they're selling something to, or I'm the boss, and we show up late and don't even say I'm sorry. You said relationship, and I would say to any salesperson out there or anybody in development, you also know it's not just the client's relationship that's vital to the process. It's the people within the organization, because we're out selling something and we're bringing in Chris Lincoln, and we're going to tell our organization, this is a good client. We should take care of him. Now, I found him, I quote unquote sold him, but now you get to service him. And I learned that. It took me a few years, to be honest with you. that the people inside the organization need just as much communication as the external customer is the one we're selling something to. And that's what made me really good, because I loved the people in the organization, and they taught me how to be better at selling our product by listening to what they already knew, but I didn't know because I was selling something. But they knew what they were going to be able to deliver from a service side. I just bring that up because that relationship piece, which is both internal and external, is something that is vital. And if you think about your family, what you do outside of work, external, what you do inside the home, internal, you're the same person. So the relationships to me are key.
I have got some of the best feedback I've ever had from internal colleagues, because one account manager or account director, who was actually fairly high up in a company that I worked with, and he was a really kind guy, he could see that I was a little bit blindsided to what some things I was doing incorrectly. And the way that he framed it to me was, clients will not always highlight stuff for you because they want to be polite. And so if you make a mistake or you get into like a bad habit, you might not realize it, and you can't rely on the clients to tell you that you're doing a poor job of something. So internal feedback, I've got some of the best advice from my colleagues saying, you need to just tweak this a little bit and you need to tweak that. And that has helped me rise above people who don't seek that kind of feedback or aren't approachable to have those kind of conversations with. And I think that actually segues. You were going to say something, Greg?
No, I was just going to say, give yourselves credit, because a lot of people aren't open to feedback, period. They know it all. I'm the guy, I'm the person, I'm the woman. But when you ask people for their feedback and you're really ready and willing to listen.
How long did that take you? Because I'll be completely honest with you. I was not very good at taking feedback when I first went into a corporate environment, because I genuinely thought I was super confident and a little bit arrogant. And it took me a while to realize that I wasn't perfect, because I wanted to be perfect at everything. So I worked really hard to be perfect and thought I was. But after like a few years, I started to realize, okay, I should start listening to some of this feedback, because I'm getting similar feedback from other people at like different companies. So I'm going to adjust that. How long did it?
I was just going to jump in there. Being cocky, being arrogant, being an egotistic, being an egomaniac, being a narcissist. A lot of people in that realm of, I'm out making a ton of money selling something, and look at me. I'm 6 years in a row, the world was telling me I was the best franchise salesperson on earth. Just ask me. But I give the credit to the people in the organization. And there were three women, three very experienced and successful women that were working with me internally, and they were in the franchise admin side of things, in the legal part. And they would process the paperwork and get the license ready for our client to sign. And they basically came to me, and I won't mince any words. They basically said, "You're a really good guy. You're new to our organization. You're doing well. You seem to have it all figured out on the outside, but we really want to give you some insight as to how you can be easier for us to work with. Do you care?" Oh, hell yes. Heck yes. Excuse me. It was a gift, Chris. And it changed the whole trajectory of my career at IHG. And at the time, it was Holiday Hospitality. Anyway, that was humbling. But it was so insightful that I never treated them any differently. I never treated them the same way again. I listened, I asked, and it became our deal, not my deal. It's not my license, it's our license. And if you just hear and I let go of so much stuff. Now, did I continue to do well and set records? And sure, but I was doing it at a pace where I couldn't do it without them. And I didn't know it, they did. But instead of messing with me and, dropping the ball and making errors and making it hard for me to execute the license agreements, they loved me. They served me. And they said, hey, here's what you need to know, Greg, because you are going to be good in this job at this company. We want you to succeed, but here's how you're going to have to make some adjustments. And,
I bet they appreciated your response to that as well. Like they're quite grateful that you didn't, fly off the handle or react badly and be like, well, I've got some feedback for you. Because some people do respond like that. So they must have really appreciated that.
Oh, yeah. I did too. That was a big gift early on in my life, and I had no idea. I mean, I was still a young man, but I had no idea. I didn't know what humility was, Chris. I didn't know what empathy was. I didn't know what compassion was. And you said early in the intro that I'm a compassionate man. I grew into this space, and life humbles us, and experiences humble us. But if we don't grow, we're just not gonna. We're just ignorant. I mean, it's just that simple. And I don't tell people they have to grow. I ask them if they want to grow. Do you want to get better at your craft, being a leader, being a husband, being a wife, being a parent? And if you do, let's go to work together. But we're going to have to do the work. And I've done the work. So it's easy for me to say it's hard work, because it is. It is hard work.
It is, because you have to put yourself in a light that you might not actually be comfortable with seeing. You're going to recognize flaws in yourself and your abilities and the way you approach things. That's really scary when you first start to see that. And that's what I think can differentiate a good leader with a bad leader really quickly. Is I've seen people who have gone from more junior roles to those senior roles and transform into these inspiring people. And I've seen the other side where they have good relationships with management and management just promote them. And then they're incredibly poor leaders and they just continue to behave exactly the same before they started leading, and they don't really develop themselves. And they're under the impression they're really good because they have good senior relationships. So I do think that can really distinguish the difference. That compassion piece, I think, is really interesting what you're saying, because I couldn't agree more. Like, I would say I've always been kind, but I didn't understand compassion for a while until I started to feel pain and until I started to go through challenges myself and understand what that felt like around other people, and then not wanting that for anyone else. Why do you think that is, that we don't learn, or we're not exposed to the kind of education to become compassionate at younger ages?
I think for me, it's really simple. We're not parented that way. We're parented to, get up, go to school, get good grades, do your chores, have good friends, be kind to people, etc. But I don't believe we don't demonstrate examples of that, because is your dad being compassionate to your mother? Is your mother being compassionate or even humble or patient with your husband? And again, the more you acquire, the more wealthier you get, you think the rules are different. No way. I don't care if your house is 7,000 square feet or 700 square feet. There's a dad, a mom, kids, and a home. What you do in that home and how you treat each other is exactly the way the kids are going to grow up. And then if you've heard me say this once, you'll probably hear me say it 100 times. If we don't stop parenting the way that we were parented, the cycle is never going to break. And then we go to work and we go, oh my gosh, this person's so wonderful. I'm going to do whatever he or she says because what? You want to get to the next level? No matter what they say, you're going to do it. Back to that integrity word. Because they don't own their word doesn't mean you have to be like that. And again, where did you learn that it was okay not to? Possibly at home, maybe at school, maybe with friends, maybe with friends' parents. We have hundreds and hundreds of influences before we take our first job. And then we have this person, and, I hate the word, but I hear it all the time. I did it because he's my boss. I did it because she's my boss. Mean she told you had to do this? Or did she example this behavior? Or did he example this behavior? So that's where it starts. And you said something interesting about the management in one of your past positions. Once somebody gets to a certain level, it almost seems like they can stop growing because they've quote unquote arrived. And I can't tell you how many clients I have that I'm not directly coaching, but I'm having conversations with them about some of the very interesting conversations in the C-suite, in the very high up in these organizations, and you'd be amazed how immature some of these conversations are. And it's basics of, if you've got a problem with someone as an individual, you don't call them out in a meeting or an executive retreat. You say, "Hey, Chris, we need to discuss this. Let's set a time and have a courageous conversation." And, who cares who's right or wrong? What's the issue? What do we have in common? How do we want to work through it? We don't learn that at home. We don't learn communication skills, Chris. And nothing against the young people, but they're in such a hurry. They're in such a hurry right now. And I'll just kind of put an end to this particular part of your question. But I also don't believe we spend enough time looking in the mirror and preparing for what's next, because that person in the mirror will not lie to you. You will lie to it. And that's what happens. And we don't like to stand in the mirror and look at ourselves and look deep in our eyes and into our soul and say, "Greg, is what you're about to do right or wrong?" And if it's the latter, please don't do it. But we don't take the time because we get so busy. Another word, 4-letter word, I just can't stand. Anyway, got off on a little tangent there, but that's, you can sense well, this is how I'm wired. Yeah, I'm passionate about it. And I tell you, I give my wife of a little over 2 years, she changed one of my leadership principles from humility to empathy. She said, "Greg, you say you want people to be humble and be kind. I get it. But empathy is so much more powerful than humility. If you think about it, empathy is the interest and the desire to see and understand where the other person is coming from. Now, if we actually slowed down and said to ourselves, before we judge somebody, by the way, I wonder where Chris is coming from. I wonder what his day was like. And if I stop to understand who you are and where you're coming from, and I don't mean just today, I mean forever. Where is he really coming from? Why is he behaving this way? Maybe I can serve him, or at the best, I can understand him and not judge him and get out of his way.
100%. I think the latter is so important, Greg, because so many people feel they need to take action or be responsible for the change in others. But actually, sometimes it's way better to just give them space.
Yeah. The only people you really have any control, and I hate using the word control, but significant influence, right? Are your spouse, and your children.
The things that like you go through as a parent just completely change you. I think it kind of forced me to develop leadership skills, because I was like, okay, I'm really responsible as a role model to do and the right things, and just like you were saying earlier, to behave in certain ways. And there's a really interesting lesson that I learned during fatherhood, and that was when my wife and my son were regularly getting into arguments because he would do something that would upset her, and then she would try and teach him that he needed to apologize. And it took so long and just wasn't really developing. And so I asked myself the question, I was like, does he know what apologizing actually looks like? He's never really seen it. So we're trying to teach him something that he doesn't know what it is. He knows what the word is, but he doesn't understand why he'd even say it. So what I started doing is, when he would get upset with something I did, I'd kneel down and go, "I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to upset you." Or even if I was in the right, and he was, he'd come up to me and hit me for something silly, I'd say, "Oh, did I upset you?" And he'd say, "Yeah, you upset me." And I'd say, "Oh, I'm really, really sorry, man. I didn't mean to upset you. Can we make up?" And he was, it took like a week. And then all of a sudden, he just completely got it. And as soon as he saw someone in emotional distress, he would say, "Have I upset you?" Or, "Oh, I'm sorry, mummy. I'm sorry, dad." It was such a like moment where I was like, wow, that this is what I think people miss. And like you said, where people are like rushing for results more than ever now. But we can't, you can't just teach people or get people to change without inspiring them in some way and showing them what that looks like. And I think leaders are really good leaders are really good at doing that, demonstrating forgiveness, demonstrating apologies. I've come across so many people, Greg, who are terrified to apologize because they're worried that it makes them look like they're in the wrong. It admits that they're in the wrong. And I get that partially, but it never ends. The conflict never ends if no one apologizes. Someone has to apologize regardless, right? When there's a conflict. You look like you're going to say something to that.
Well, I was just loving your story about you and your wife and your child, because you've nailed, and you went on to say it. You've nailed the most valuable and most powerful trait of a leader, and that's behaving as an example and leading by example. Absolutely. Because your son now can grow up watching two people who love and admire and cherish one another. And that's what a loving relationship is. Now, will he see that at school? Maybe, maybe not. Will he see the teachers respect one another? Will he see the principals respecting the teachers? I don't know. Don't know what your schools are like. But if you don't example behaviors that you want him to go out and repeat, then he'll never go out and repeat them, because, like you said, he won't see them. But on the opposite side, and this is what we fail miserably at as parents. They're in the other room, but they can hear dad yelling at mom or mom yelling at and they say they're not only not apologizing, but they're using profanity or they're calling each other names. And then the little kid walks to the door and, "Oh, we're sorry. Did we upset you?" Of course you did, because you were both acting like idiots. And I don't mean you and your wife. I'm saying, and then to my example about, boys grow up to be men, but they grow up to be older boys and young men and older men, just like their dad. If you're not careful, you're going to end up just like your dad. And I'm not saying you, but after I left IHG and before I started Aden Leadership, I had to do a lot of work on myself. And this is a part of my story not a lot of people know. I didn't just go from successful, lots of money, lots of rewards, franchise salesperson, leader of franchise salespeople. After Laura and I got divorced and I resigned from IHG, before I even established Aden Leadership, I knew I had a lot of work to do. How was I going to transition into being a leadership coach after years and years of being in sales development? What did I know about leadership? So, as you know, I decided to study servant leadership, which has been around a long, long time. Robert Greenleaf made it famous in the 70s. But I also had to find out, what is my source? Who created me, and why am I like this? Well, my story is a little long and complicated, but I'll shorten it down to, you are a product of your mom and dad. Now, if you don't know your parents, if you happen to be adopted, yes, that's different. But most of us know we came from these two human beings, and how we were raised, how we are spoken to, or how we are spoken with has a significant amount of how we're going to end up showing up. Now, I had two other influences, a stepmom and a stepdad, when I was 9 and 10. So I grew up, Chris, thinking I was great because I had 4 positive influences, and most people only have 2. Well, but intimacy can only be shared along so many lines, and I had 4 instead of 2. So how deep did I really go? Saying all this, I decided, did I want to be selfish and competitive, and it's all about me like my dad? Did I want to be jealous and insecure like my mom? Well, I had no choice unless I made a choice. So I let go of the things about my parents I didn't love and respect. And I hung on to the things that I thought would serve me, not only as a spouse and as a dad and as a leadership coach. So I hold very firmly to leaders that are listening. If you want to be a better leader, start exempling the behaviors that are positive. Start exempling the behaviors that will help your team come closer together. Start exempling behaviors that are going to make people want to follow you. Because leaders, you know this as sure as I'm saying it, they don't have to follow you. They get to. They want to. Now they can pretend they're following you, but you already know that. So it all starts with who were you when you were young? How are you parented? What examples of great leadership or poor leadership do you have? Then who are you becoming? And I was 50 when I decided to make this change. 50. Most people would think that's pretty old. Well, you're as old as you think you are. So for the last 10 years, I've been helping thousands of people, one at a time, 5 at a time, hundreds at a time. And the message is always the same. If you want to be a great leader, raise your hand. And if you don't know everything, ask for help. Do you know how hard it is for someone who is as right all the time to raise their hand? It is. And Chris, that's one of the most difficult things. And it's mainly men, I would guess, maybe women with egos, but mainly men who are so powerful, they don't raise their hand and ask for help because they don't want to be seen as weak, not wrong. I do agree we don't want to be wrong, but I also believe that most American leaders, I can speak for that they don't want to raise their hand and ask for help because they don't want to be viewed as weak. You're not weak. Yeah. I mean, you've probably heard of Brene Brown, but she made being vulnerable sexy. She made being courageous with your word amazing. And I think that, I believe her, Simon Sinek, and several others have helped leaders really see the soft skills matter as much as anything else. But argue with me that servant leadership was soft, then you'll lose every time, because it isn't. It isn't at all. It's powerful to ask questions. It's powerful to be curious and ask questions of the people you say. And I say this very specifically. You say you love, then treat them as though you love them. You say you love the people you work with, then behave that way. And if you weren't loved in a way that was kind, then yeah, you might want to see somebody.
Well, what do you think someone can do if they're perhaps in an environment and surrounded by a culture or a community that's maybe a little toxic and isn't really demonstrating these leadership examples, and they want to get out of that and they want to become a leader? They don't want to fit in with the rest of the sheep. The way you put it was really good, that you don't necessarily want to follow the people around you. You recognize that it's not you. What advice would you give to those people?
Well, first of all, I would ask them to get into a quiet space and ask yourself, what is really important to you? Go back to your core values. It's something I do with every single client I have. We start with values and beliefs. And if honesty and integrity and truthfulness and relationships and doing the right thing, if those are showing up as your core values, and you're not working with or for or in an organization that doesn't honor those values. Now, their website might say it, but you know in your heart what your values are. I would ask you to disalign or get out of the toxic environment as quickly as you can, and find an organization that does honor the same values that you do. Because if you're not aligned with your values, you're going to just automatically say, okay, I'm here for the money. I'm here for the reward. I'm here for the recognition. And I'm going to put my values aside, and I'm going to stay in this toxic or unkind or uncouth environment. But that's your choice. So to your answer very specifically is, you have a choice to stay or go. And if you're staying, ask yourself why. What is so damn important that you want to stay, even though you don't like the way people are being treated? Or do you say, I want to go, and you start making a plan for it? And for me, the first step is to re-look at your values, align yourself in your beliefs again based on what you said was important, and go find an organization that wants to serve the people in their organization and their clients the way you believe people should be treated. Make a change, in short.
And what about, is it the same answer for if that environment is outside of the organization? Say like it's someone who hasn't had their first job yet, they're quite young, and the family life, the home life isn't going so well, school life isn't going so well, whatever it is, they're not surrounded by people that lift them up. What advice would you give to people who want to pursue something greater?
Well, the family dynamics are a little different, and depending on the age of the person we're talking about, a lot of them, they stay true to their values, but they don't want to get too far away from the opportunity for mom and or dad to help them out financially. So they play along. And I have two examples right here in Denver. I won't mention their names, but they're playing along because they know, although they don't respect their dad, they know that dad's going to help them down the road with a house. And, is that enough? Okay. I don't know. 85,000, 100,000, 150. I don't know. That's a lot of money to a lot of people. But you can say, well, if they value honesty and integrity and they know their dad isn't, then why would they stay? Well, it's more complicated than that. But there's always a reason why people stay associated with people they don't honor, or they don't even like. They're disgusted by their behaviors. There's a reason they stick around. And money and popularity, opportunities to go on trips. I mean, all sorts of really ridiculous stuff. But if you're 20 something or just barely 30, what daddy's going to give you or daddy's going to leave you might really make a difference. I don't know. I made my own wealth. I have 4 parents. One of them's dead, and 2 of them are not going to leave much. And my stepmom is, she is where she is right now. But I don't want my parents' money. I don't want parents to take care of me. I think parents should live to the very last day and have everything they've left, nothing behind. That would change people. I guarantee you that would change people if they didn't know they had a big paycheck at the end of someone's death. But United States is a lot different than Europe, and we're messed up in that way, in a big way. We have way too much wealth on one side and not enough on the other. And a few people on this side could change the world of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of homeless people. But that's a whole nother podcast. Yeah.
How did you build this wealth you're talking about? And there's going to be people who are listening to this, and even I'm interested to know how you managed to do that, because it's a very difficult thing to do. And I think people expect it to happen in the first month of starting a business, but they don't quite comprehend like the journey that you go through to develop that. So can you talk a little bit about that and perhaps share some insights around how you developed that?
Yeah. First of all, value the dollar today and tomorrow, because it's not for sure. I mean, I remember when I started working for, and I'll use his name because he's one of my favorite human beings, Jim Ainsworth, a good old boy from East Texas, had just started a financial services company. And I was the 7th employee hired, and I was there to help him recruit CPAs to help them get licensed and turn into registered representatives or financial planners. So this broker dealer, that's the name of it, was First Global Capital. I told him, I said, I'm living on a shoestring right now. I left Marriott. I made a mad decision to go to Corpus Christi. We started working with his organization. I left the organization I was with. Jim gave me a chance. And 2 or 3 months into it, he said, I don't know what your financial situation is. I said, well, I have debt. He says, and I think I was 30 years old, 1992, 1993. He says, well, you and I are going to build a financial plan, because that's what he does. He's built financial plans for hundreds of people, and you will follow it and you will get out of debt. And I said, yes, sir. And that's the beginning of understanding the value of money. You can live a lavish life based on how much money you make or how much money you intend to inherit at some point. But it comes down to live within your means. Live within your means. You don't want debt. Keep everything in front of you. Know where your income's coming from. Don't overspend. Don't live a life that isn't real. And that's, it's something else I would tell the young people. I know you have mom and dad's credit cards or maybe your own, and it'll get paid off someday. But just live within your means. That's probably the easiest way to put it. And you build wealth over time by just putting stuff away, making good investments. I've made some good ones. I've made some bad ones. I tell you the best investment I made, and I don't mean to sound silly, but marrying Tammy two years ago. She is the most delightful person I have ever met. She came from nothing, and she's been in the same job for going on 29 years. She is the leader of her business in the entire state of Colorado, and she's taught me a lot about a lot of things. But together we have a great life, and we don't want for much, but we still work hard. So here's the second piece of advice. Live within your means, but you've got to do the work, Chris. You've got to work hard. And again, USA, different from Europe. I know this. We were just there. We have a lot of people who just like to sit around and have their hand out. They sit on the couch and wait for Uncle Sam to send them the unemployment check. It makes me sick. Do the work. Get dressed. Go out and ask for a job. There's lots of jobs. You just have to ask for the right one. Well, I'm not you, Greg. I didn't, I'm having a conversation with my sister as we speak. She's older than I am and still has got a lot of good years left. But she's content, comfortable. And dare I say, there's some people like that are in that same description, and they're just lazy, Chris. They don't want to work. They'll eat till their heart's content. We're a big nation. Look around. And I say that because I'm 61 and I've taken really good care of myself. How? You got to move. You got to eat right. You got to move. You got to eat right. You got to move. That's it. Well, you don't know this person. Okay. Other than that small percentage, we are a very comfortable society here in the United States. And when we've arrived. We've got the boat, we've got the big car, we've got the big garage, but we can't see our feet because our belly's out in front of us. And once you have that, no going back.
That's a hard thing to beat once that happens. It's totally possible, but I think the discipline of managing your diet and continuing to work is rarer than I thought it was. And I personally struggle not to eat like fast foods and terrible foods every now and again. I've got a lot better, but I grew up just eating pizzas for dinner pretty much every single night and lots of cheese. And I was drinking Coke all the time. I barely had a glass of water during my childhood. Something I just didn't do. I didn't eat vegetables. I didn't eat fruit. My entire university lifestyle, where I had full control and full decision on what I ate, it was really bad. I'll just put it like that. And so when it started to impact my health, I started to have seizures without even realizing it. I just thought I was having blackouts. But then one time it happened in front of my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, and she told me the physiological things that were happening to me while I blacked out, and I never really attributed it to a big issue, but it happened several times. And then she pointed it out, and I came back to reality, and she was on the phone to 999 crying her eyes out, and I was coming to, and I just remember saying, "Are you okay?" And she said, "Am I okay? Are you okay? What was that? What just happened to you?" And I said, "Oh, I just had one of my blackouts." And she was like, "Your eyes rolled back, your whole body started shaking, and all this stuff." And I had to go to the hospital and get checked out. But it all 100% came down to my lifestyle, and my diet was just really poor, and I never really had any role models or any inspiration to say do things differently. It was that moment where I saw it impact my wife, where it changed for me, and I quit smoking. I was smoking at the time, and yes, I've been smoke free for years, and yeah, cut out alcohol and trying to eat better at the moment. I've got an accountability partner who is helping me. We take pictures of our meals and send them to each other, and it's really embarrassing when I have to send them something horrible that I've eaten.
But your accountability partner, you've asked this human being to hold you accountable, because you either can't, which could be possible, but really accountability partners are there because you are doing things that you want to do, and you're not stopping things you don't want to stop. And that's your God-given right. But asking for help, I'm not saying you did, but getting an accountability partner sounds like someone who's raised their hand and said, hey, I'm not going to be able to do this by myself. That's courageous.
Yeah, I haven't been able to do it myself. Like I said, the whole response from my wife when I had one of my many seizures was the moment where I said I had to do something differently. And yeah, the guy who's helping me with this stuff, he's really amazing. Actually, he's built his own business from scratch, and it was like I did a few coaching sessions with him for free while I was just developing my skills. And we really both enjoyed it. We got a lot out of it. He didn't think he'd get anything out of it. But the funny thing was he was doing so much that I identified that he wasn't giving himself enough space or meditating or time to like not think and not work. And it was actually slowing him down that actually helped him. And so he messaged me like months later, just saying that, he wanted to meet up again and start having these conversations. And so instead of doing coaching sessions for him, I've learned a lot, so much from chatting to him, that I just said, let's just be accountable for each other. And we now meet on a regular basis to hold each other accountable for the things we want to do. So we set out like what we want to achieve by our next meeting. So it might be next week, and then what we want to achieve in 3 weeks, and then what we want to achieve, one week, 1 month, and 3 months, I think it is. And so, just being able to improve ourselves that little by little, rather than kind of saying in 10 years we want to do this. And I found that to be really helpful, because it's the daily habits that make such a huge impact on the progress that you make towards the thing you want or success. Because it's so easy to avoid and to procrastinate and to pick up your phone and to go and do something and not even think about it. And then it becomes a habit after a few months of doing something. And then that just takes up so much of your time. And then you use that 4-letter word you were talking about, I'm busy. When I tell people the stuff that I do, and they ask me like, how do you find the time to do that? My answer is always the same. I don't look at my phone that much. When I'm on the train, I'm studying or I'm reading or I'm listening to a podcast. And then when I'm at home, I'm connecting with my family or having conversations, or I'm looking something up, or I'm writing, I'm reading, I'm doing something that's probably not common. And so all this time,
not common to the person who asked you the question. But if you look around, there's Chris Lincolns all over, researching, reading, listening, learn. Right.
Yeah, it's just that the people, when I have these conversations that I'm doing all these things, and they ask me, where do you get the time from? The thing that I've identified is the amount of time that I used to spend on my phone, playing games, looking at apps, buying stuff online, just that whole getting very addicted to my phone. And once I stopped doing that, and I still have a little bit of, a game every now and again, but 90% of the time I'm trying to use my phone for practical reasons and not trying to get sucked into the addictive side.
Well, there's a proven correlation between what we were talking about earlier, the size of people in the United States, and the phone. Because typically while you're on your phone, you're doing what? You're sitting down, you're laying down, you're reclined, you're not moving. Now, again, this is not to pick on the people that have allowed themselves, and I say that very specifically, they've allowed themselves to get heavy or get out of shape, whatever you want to call it. But you can, the reason, the answer to the question, if someone asked me that, where do you find the time? You don't want to say this to, let's just say, Jackie, who asked you the question. Jackie, how many hours do you have in a week? 168, right? Yeah. She'll say, oh yeah. Okay. Yes. Well, what do you do to better yourself during the 168 hours every week? There is no plan. Well, break it down to the day. You sleep 8 hours, you work 8, that leaves you 8. What do you do during the 8 where you're not at work? That's when you work on yourself. Or if you have a job like you and I have, we can work on ourselves anytime we want. We make our own hours. So it's not that where do you find the time, Chris? What you said to her without saying is, you mean, what do I make time for? You mean you asking me what I make time for? I make time for the most important person in my world, me. And then I make time for my wife, and I make time for my boy. Why you? Why you first? Because everybody I just named after you depends on you. And if you turn into a shit show, they're going to be following a dad like that? Nope. She'll leave you and take the kid.
Yeah. 100%. It's actually incredible how much of an influence that your behaviors and your energy has on other people just when you're interacting with them. And so that I'm always conscious of that, like when I'm talking to people, like giving them eye contact that they deserve, and always giving people the benefit of the doubt, especially when I first meet them, that they're a wonderful person. And that's become a really important thing to me, because that wasn't necessarily how communications worked when I was younger. And so it was really important for me to people to know that they were in safe hands, and that I wasn't going out to embarrass them. I wasn't there to hurt them or scare them or anything, intimidate them or anything like that. And so it's just small, kind acts and small gestures, just as simple like, hey, how's it going, and feeling it genuinely can have such an impact on the way someone feels. And I've read studies on this, and I'm sure you have, that you can feel as much pain from a social attack as well as a physical attack. So if you insult somebody or you say something out of line, you can really hurt them. And I think people aren't necessarily, not everyone, but some people are not educated to understand that.
Well, they're not, again, I agree. Yes, they're not educated. But then again, where would we be educated on that? Now right? My son's in 7th grade, and there's signs all over his hallway that say, be kind, be considerate, no touching, no pushing, no hating, etc. But I believe it's the positive affirmations that we give ourselves first. I don't tell myself, stop doing that. I tell myself, start doing this, or do this, do this. And the don'ts are minimal, because if I'm doing the right do's, the don'ts don't even come into play. I wanted to comment on a couple things you said, and they're both beautiful. One of them is, believe the best in the person, because they can behave into the person that you think they are in your head really quickly. And then you can justify yourself. But if they behave their way into someone you don't want to be around, you just do what? You just walk away. Or you end a relationship because what you thought was really them in the beginning, they start to behave that way. You just say goodbye, that this relationship isn't serving me. But something else, Tammy, my lovely wife, has helped me over these past few years is believe the best in people first. And if out of all the people I've met that she knew and I didn't know, and all I heard was stories, I had judgment over a few people when I first met them. Absolutely. And I was right about 3 of them. And the rest, I'm glad I got to know them, because they were exactly who she thought they were. They were a little intimidated by her being married again or being me or who I was. But no, believe the best in people. And then you had said something about how you spend your time and the things you're learning, just reading and studying, and that is a huge part of doing the work. Getting off your phone, because your phone isn't telling you how cool you are. Your phone's not telling you how much money you're going to make. Your phone is simply an opportunity to communicate, but not watch and listen and think. And that's not telling you your value. You get to tell you your value. Your friends and your loved ones and your colleagues and your clients, they get to tell you how valuable you are. That's never going to come from a phone. If you get off on likes, well, what happens if all that goes away? Who's going to like you? Well, you got to like yourself first. And that's what I've seen in you, young man. You've come a long way through a lot of interesting trials and tribulations since I've met you, and you had to walk away because of behavior or beliefs or values. And we won't get into it today, but I commend you for doing that. I also commend you for starting your own consulting firm. And the last thing I'll leave you with is you said, when I first started, I was, giving some free advice, or I was helping people. And coaches and consultants that are listening, that's the only way to start a firm. Just go out and serve. And I'm not saying to practice medicine without a license. I'm saying just go out and serve while you're getting certified. Don't look for all these initials by your name and then go out and, brag about how many, certifications you have. Yes, you need to be a certain person relative to integrity and credentials, but exactly. But you can be incredible by how much you serve people. And that's been I'll tell you, that's my secret, Chris. The first thing I did, I became involved in this ICF, International Coach Federation, Colorado. It was a state chapter. And there were a bunch of people sitting around in a well-lit room telling stories. And I walked in and I heard someone say, we want to do a conference. Well, I had 32 years of hospitality. I said, hey, I can help. Long story short, they said, here's the budget, here's the plan, to go do it. And I did. I became president 2 years later. And I was a president for 4 years or involved in that organization for 4 years. But the thing I noticed, Chris, is everyone was focused on, where are my clients coming from? Where are my clients coming from? Greg, how do you do it? Oh, you're lucky you came from corporate. No, I learned this. No one's coming. No one's knocking on your door saying, will you coach me? You have to approach people. You have to ask them, how may I serve you? What can I do for you today? Absolutely nothing. Or, I don't know. Tell me what you do. How do you do it? And then all of a sudden you align, and then they hire you. And then they tell someone else about you, and then they hire you because you align. That's how it starts. Don't make this more difficult than it is. And I just want to acknowledge you for what you said. You just went out and started helping people. That's the secret.
100%. And I think that there's a lot of fear at the beginning with going out and asking people to consider your services. There's definitely a bit of what's that phrase? Imposter syndrome that you feel when you start messaging people in LinkedIn and Facebook, and you start saying, doing your pitch or doing your initial outreach. It's really scary, but you desensitize from it after you've done 100. It just is second nature to you, and you're not attached to the rejection or the opportunity. It's kind of just part of what you do. So I think that's really important, because when people talk to me about them starting their businesses, and like you said, they expect it to just like come in the first month. It's like, no, you've got to really step outside your comfort zone, and you've got to approach people, and it's going to be really uncomfortable at the beginning because you haven't done that. You've worked at companies where people recognized your product. They recognized the name of the company. They were able to Google and see plenty of credible information. And if you're going to start a business with nothing, man, you've got a lot of work to do to build up that credibility and give people an organic reason to want to work with you. And you're going to fail. You're going to have certain pitches that are going to absolutely tank. And I still have those conversations now where I'll walk away from a meeting and be like, that was I had one today where I was pitching and I just thought, I didn't let the client talk enough. How did I mess that up so bad? Because I was in such a routine of the way that I usually pitch. And I've recognized that sometimes the length of the meeting doesn't always accommodate for the way I have structured things in the past. And so that was a learning for me. And so, 10 plus years of being in meetings with clients where I'm trying to pitch or upsell services, and I still make mistakes. So I think that's really important to acknowledge that first step is get over the fear of reaching out and having conversations about offering your services by doing it, because that's the only way you're really going to be able to conquer that fear.
Well, you hit it on the head. And I worked for a national brand. I sold national brands, and they wanted my product. My phone rang. I didn't have to make many calls. No, there's a lot of my comrades that did. They lived in more difficult parts of the country. But the secret to pitching is to stop pitching. The secret to serving is to ask better questions. And when we're authentically curious about where the other person's coming from and asking them, the purpose of this meeting, I know is I invited you, thank you, but what is it they want to achieve during the 25, 35, 45 minutes together? And that's something we get out on the table right away. We have a purpose for the Zoom meeting. But if they leave you by examples that you've shown that you care, you ask great questions, you're very curious about their success, and you ask them this beautiful question without even asking them, what problem can I help you solve? What pain can I help you let go of? What goal may I help you reach? And if they have no answer to all three of those, they're either faking it or they're not a client of yours or not a future client. But if someone gives you a chance to serve them and you do it as well as I know you do, then Samantha or Steve or Bobby or Jackie, they can go and say, you've got to hire Chris. He's changed my life. He's changed my world. He's helped me with my communication. He's helped me with my relationships, whatever your expertise is. But if you're doing what I think you're doing, you're going to start with what's important to the human being you're sitting across from. Where do they want to go? How do they want to get there? And what part are you going to play? And guess what? You're just a coach. They have to do the work. So you don't want clients that aren't going to do the work, because they're not going to do the work. Therefore, they're not going to get the results. And therefore, they're not going to say good things about you because you didn't help them do anything because they didn't want to do anything. So the vetting, and I know this might be a little off script, but anyone that's selling anything, stop selling. Help the person in front of you buy what they want to buy. And if you have it, sell it to them. If you don't have it, tell them right away, I'm not your guy. I'm not your person. But we take clients on that we don't know how to serve, and then we say, gosh, I shouldn't have done that. Well, that's our fault.
Yeah, 100%. I know that we've gone a little over time, Greg, so I just want to ask you one last question, if that's okay. Okay. Who have you helped and who helped you?
Jim Ainsworth, who I mentioned earlier taught me a ton about in entrepreneurship. And who have I helped? Boy, the list is long without sounding overconfident, but there's a lot of names. Pamela Caracoli in New York, SUNY of New York, found me on LinkedIn, and I helped her personally more than I thought I was going to, and her team. David Hughes with BCR Engineering here in Denver, Craig Hospital, Diana Reinhardt, the chief nursing officer. I would say that I helped her 13 CNCs, as well as the head of communication there at Craig, Jake Manley. RRI West, it's a management company, Red Roof Organization, Sage Hospitality. I mean, the list is pretty long. But I would say in general, it's not the who by name or by title or by organization. I've helped a lot of people understand how they can be better human beings. One of my clients today is First Bank, and I'll just shout out Tony G. He repeatedly would tell me, I love working with you, Greg, because I'm becoming a better man. I'm becoming a better dad, and I'm becoming a better husband. And oh, by the way, thank you for helping me for what I do at First Bank. And I wanted to hear that because I also learned in that moment, I'm coaching the entire person, not the title. There is no work-life balance. Your title will never end up on a tombstone. So quit telling people what you do. Tell people how you help others. Because no matter what your title is, you're helping somebody with something. So start with how you help people and stop telling people, I'm a vice president of human resources for this organization. Okay, thanks for your title and who you work for. What do you do and how do you help people? Because if you don't help people, I'm really not interested in what you do. But everybody helps people. Everybody.
Thanks, Greg. Greg, it's been amazing having you on. I knew this would be a phenomenal podcast. I don't think I asked even half of the questions I wrote down because we just got so into it. But hey, it has been fun. Thank you so much for taking the time, Greg. If people want to, you're welcome. If people do want to check you out, what's the best way to get out, to reach out to you?
Well, adenleadership.com. That's the website. And love to hear from some of your followers, Chris, on LinkedIn. And again, just Greg Aden. I have my personal page or Aden Leadership on LinkedIn. Either one of them you can find this goofball, and I'd love to communicate with whoever you want me to.
Thanks, Greg. Speak to you soon.